Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm your host, Robbie, and this is The Unhinged Father. It's a podcast for normal folks looking for some humor, connection, relatability, or those who just like the sound of my sultry voice. A place where we can embrace aiming to be better people, but can accept that we will never get there. And that's okay. We're okay. I'm not some enlightened asshole here to tell you how amazing and perfect my life is, and then convince you to buy my how-to guide on how to make your shit not stink. I'm right here in the mud with you, working towards a better life, extending a hand out along the way. Now let's go ahead and jump into this week's episode. Welcome in, everyone. I've got Jeff Fajans here today with me. He's going to be joining the Unhinged Father podcast, and I'm going to go ahead and let him do his own introduction. So, Jeff, why don't you take some time to tell us who you are, what you do, and how you do it?
Awesome to be here, Robbie. I've been looking forward to chatting with you. I am a creative momentum coach. I work with creative entrepreneurs and help them bring their biggest ideas to life and reach their next level of creative success. It's essentially a hybrid of productivity and leadership coaching, specializing in working with creative personalities and doing creative work. It's a lot of fun. So some of my clients might be business owners starting or launching a new business or looking to scale it to its new level of growth. People writing films, people writing books, building apps, products, doing art, doing music, any kind of creative work that people find meaningful, and they need a little extra support in kind of bringing that from concept to completion and out into the world. That's what I primarily do. I also create an original style of kids music inspired by my 5.5-year-old son Hendrix, that some people in the industry have coined as Beastie Boys for babies. I create this music under the artist name Mr. Boodaddy, and recently this year in 2024 I was invited to join the Recording Academy, and really exciting news, really pumped up about that. So that's what I'm up to lately, and that's what I do.
Awesome. Really exciting stuff. And Jeff came to the Unhinged Father podcast. He saw something on social media, some dumb comment that I made about listening to Creedence Clearwater Revival or listening to Linkin Park and how it's similar to me listening to CCR with my dad. And Jeff, obviously being a music buff, saw that, liked it, and reached out to me. And here he is. And I'm actually really excited to talk about this because it's something that doing what I'm doing right now, this creative outlet, is something that's really important, I think, in a healthy family, but it's something that I struggle with personally. I'm not someone who I would say is naturally creative or don't view myself as a creative, even though this is kind of my outlet. And if you haven't already, anyone, the episode I just released this past week is about that. I was actually doing a reflection about what I was going to have a conversation with Jeff today, and kind of did a preamble, whatever it is, to this right here. So we're going to go ahead and jump in, Jeff. I've got a little bit of some questions I wanted to go through, but want this to be more of like a free flowing conversation between the two of us, and just seeing how you can best help, myself and my audience, to discover some of that creativity and have that outlet, and how it can impact them if they have kids, how it can help benefit them as well. So I think I wanted to start off by defining kind of what creativity is and why it's important to foster in your children. Because a lot of people think creativity, they think music or dance or just like painting, but I think there's a lot of different things. So to you, what would you kind of define creativity as?
Yeah, and that's it's a loaded question, but I think it's important to frame it in a way that's universal and helpful. Um, you're right. Like it's not just about art or making a sculpture or traditionally creative artistic endeavors. Creativity to me is an orientation to life. It's more about tapping into this authentic combination of your unique strengths, curiosities, passions, perspectives, your skills, your taste, your motivations, your values. It's like a big melting pot where all these things come together in an authentic way. And I think we all have some kind of spark within us, some itch that we want to bring to life, that we want to challenge ourselves and see if we can actually make this thing happen. Like take an idea that we find inspiring or motivating, whether it's in business, whether it's writing, music, engineering, whatever. Like it can be any domain. And really, it's just all about taking nothing and turning it into something or doing something a little bit differently than the status quo, right? And scientifically, in the psychology of creativity, they define it as doing something novel and useful. So there's some element of doing something new, doing something original, something different, and it can be radically different or new, or it could be just incrementally, just like having a little bit of a twist, putting a spin on it, like your own authentic spin on something. Like all these things are creative. And depending on our personalities, our goals, our motivations, there's no right or wrong way to be creative, but I do think it is a choice that, and it's a hard choice because it's easier to fall in line to kind of do status quo, to just do what you should do, what others want you to do. It takes courage, it takes commitment and choice and effort to apply this creative orientation to whatever it is you're doing. And like you're saying, like what you're doing, the podcast, like you started this because you wanted to, like you had this itch, you felt like you had some strengths in your perspective and you had some opinions that you wanted to express that you think were being underexpressed or not expressed at all, and you thought you could kind of put your own authentic stamp on things, and nobody was asking you, no one was calling you saying, hey Robbie, I need you to do this podcast and I need you to, I'll pay you this much and we need a new episode every week. No one's saying that. You don't have a boss making you do this. Like this is just something you felt compelled to do, and it's awesome that you're doing it. And that to me is what creativity is about, is just like taking that something. For me it's music or a coaching business, and making the most of it and trying to bring it to life, like so it's not just stuck in our minds or in our hearts, but we're doing it, we're living it, we're trying to grow it, we're bringing it to life, we're seeing what happens with it. To me, that's what creativity is all about. And I think that's a really important frame for our kids to have, right? Like yeah, school, they have to get good grades, and it's a little bit more status quo or meet the standards oriented, and there's structures and curriculum. But ultimately in life, I believe creativity is that meta skill, like being able to commit to the creative process from concept to completion. That to me is that ultimate skill that we can help our children cultivate, that will help them be successful in whatever they do, help them feel authentic and confident in whatever they're doing. It just will help them find more joy and engagement and meaningfulness out of their life. And it's an internally driven thing. It's like it breeds independence, right? Like if your child has this skill, this creativity skill, they're not dependent or reliant on finding meaning and joy and fulfillment. They're not on something externally happening to them, or what I mean? Like they can create this, they can go out
Yeah,
and
it's
get
more of like
engaged
this
in it. Yeah,
internal feeling that they get. A lot of times you get like this external validation through society or
exactly.
culture or whatever it is. And a lot of times children are looking for that. Like my son, who just started kindergarten, like your son as well, we're starting to see that he's taking the things that other people are talking about. Like his toys have a little crack in it. And he's like, oh, I don't want to bring this one because other kids say I have old or shitty toys.
Mm,
And we're trying to breed this like, hey, it's an internal feeling, like your satisfaction, your happiness, your joy. It's an internal feeling of like you cultivate it from within. And I think that's kind of what you're getting
hmm
at there, is like it's not
exactly.
exactly like toys are not creativity, but it's that same like wavelength of trying to find your happiness or your joy internally as opposed to looking for external sources.
Right, right, exactly.
Yep.
hmm
And I definitely think I found the new tagline for the podcast through what you were talking about there. Just like the Unhinged Father, the podcast absolutely no one asked for. So that one, that
Love
that
it.
sounds like it'd be
Yeah,
a good one there.
that's
But
awesome. Yeah.
no, but I agree with a lot of what you're saying there. And I think the part it's great to have the definition, but one of the parts I wanted to get into is like the how do you do this, especially, we're going to focus a little bit more so with like the adults later, and you as like a dad or a parent, a mom, whatever it is, how you can cultivate creativity in your own life. But how do you help your own kids cultivate their creative outlets?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I I think there's 5 overall pillars to this. Like one, you seek to identify your child's creative strengths. 2, you help them nurture this growth mindset. 3, you find ways to creatively play. 4, you're thinking about your parenting style and your home environment and how those interactions between you and your kids, how you'd qualify them, and how do you build trust and support and autonomy. And then lastly, like you're saying, like being a creative role model as a parent yourself. So like the first step is like we want to be on the lookout for those creative strengths, those talents, those curiosities, those innate passions, right? And so the best way to start off with that, like before you can just kind of land on their skill or talent, and a lot of times this may not be what you're hoping it will be, right? Like we want like, oh yeah, my son's gonna be the best guitar player ever. He's gonna be a football player just like me. It's probably not. It may not exactly line up how you hope as a parent, but like you can. The best way to figure out those creative strengths, like first you start off with exposing your kids to a diversity and variety of activities in different domains, right? So you're trying to cast a wide, broad net, do things that are very different, new to them. And this can, this exposure, you can start doing it right away when your kids are infants and toddlers, right? Like it's not something you need to wait until they're, middle school or preschool. Like you can expose them to different experiences, different activities, different types of people, different types of events, different types of books, different types of toys, different ideas. Because at the essence, creativity happens when different ideas or different um, disciplines or domains intersect, right? Like there's a quote out there, like I don't know the exact quote, but it's like someone said creativity is ideas having sex with each other and then like coming up like with new combinations. And so it's also a great way, like more exposure to a variety of activities. And you can do this through books, through media, through lived experiences. It You can then kind of see what they're most curious about, what captures their attention the most, what they're maybe more skilled in compared to their peers, just naturally. Like there's some kids are better, you know, at certain things than others, and everyone's different. And then like you see like what energizes your kids the most. You like what do they really love doing? What do they look forward to doing? And through a lot of exposure, you can compare and contrast, right? Like, oh, like they really love this. Looked like they were bored here. This really captivated their attention. My son or daughter seems to be naturally skilled and good at this thing compared to the general baseline of what I'm seeing with the other kids. And you can use all these clues to identify patterns and kind of reflect on what is it about these things at the essence that really is activating my son or daughter's curiosity, talents, energy type of thing. So you start there, and that's like the foundation of it all, right? Like, I don't know, like, do you notice certain things that your kids are more curious or energized by or skilled in comparatively?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. You know, having a 5 year old and a 1.5 year old, it's different every day, but we definitely go through these like big chunks of period where they're super interested in something, or they like want to go in one direction, and it's not always in like the creative outlet, right? My older son, he's not like huge on coloring, but when he does, I make sure that I like praise him for doing the coloring. Like, hey, you're getting so much better at this. Look at, you're staying within the lines, even if he doesn't do very much of it. So I try to make sure that I'm like, helping push him along in those areas. I'd say the areas that he likes the best are music. He loves music. Both kids absolutely love music. And I'm not shy of letting him listen to like adult music. Everyone else is listening to Baby Shark, and my kids are listening to Rage Against the Machine or something like that. Obviously, without the curse words in there. I definitely do, like, even when like the word hell comes on, I'll do the like, and like cover it up. But yeah, bugs, snakes. Like, I definitely, like, my son likes to go outside and look for stuff, look for animals, collect lizards and bugs and snakes and stuff like that. And I let him do it. His mom's like, your hands are filthy. And I'm like, I don't give a shit. I want him to be outside to do those types of things. So yeah, if he shows an interest in something, I definitely do try to like help him in a certain way. And me and his mom, actually, we don't get in fights over it, but I feel like there's a fine line between helping cultivate this creativity, whether it be with bugs or whatever, and like a mess or like more work for mom and dad. Because my kid, he was really into to fish for a long time, and he had these like little tiny plastic fish, and he wanted to play with them in these tanks. And so I would go and get like a plastic table, put down mats on the floor, and then fill up these big gallon buckets with water and let him play with fish in the kitchen, because it was cold outside. And so he'd play in the kitchen, and shit, he'd get water all over the house. I'd see like little footprints going to the fucking bathroom and coming back. And I think that it's trying to find that fine line between letting them do whatever the hell they want, but then also being willing to take on a little extra work as a parent to let your kid have that freedom to be able to play in a creative way, as opposed to just like, okay, what's the least messy way for you to like be occupied while I'm doing something? Here's the TV, here's the tablet. Less work for mom and dad, but also probably really, really shitty for the kid.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Yeah. And that kind of taps into like your parenting style and the home environment you're creating. Like, yeah, some of this stuff, it's like creativity is hard in general. And then helping someone else be creative does require mindfulness and effort, and then maybe take a little bit more like choice and deliberate effort on one's part. But like, it's in the long run, it pays off for sure. And like in terms of like the environment and setting up your kids for success, and like there is a lot of research around kind of what you're describing as like authoritative parenting style versus an authoritarian and or permissive. Like authoritative is kind of this flexible, paradoxical, almost like form of parenting, where authoritarian is very micromanaging. Here's the rules, stick with them, do it this way. I'm going to tell you what to do exactly as a parent. Don't deviate, otherwise you're going to get in trouble. You have to follow the rules. Don't make a mess. Keep everything clean, right? Like that form of parenting on one end is very hindering of creativity. If that's about something you want to develop, then in your kids, then that style is not very conducive to that. But on the other end, like the permissive, laissez-faire, do whatever you want, whatever, it's fine. Get completely messy, get completely chaotic. There's no boundaries, there's no rules. You can get away with anything, and I love you no matter what type of thing. That's not good for creativity either, but it is like building this authoritative parenting style, which is almost a balance of both, right? Like you have boundaries, you have certain values and expectations, certain standards that you expect everyone in your family, including the kids, to live up to. Like that might be, we try hard, we put in effort, we clean up, we can make a mess, but we clean it up afterwards, whatever it is. But you're also very encouraging and supportive of their autonomy and them coming up with their own ideas for what they want to do, and them making their own decisions. It's all like within a set of constraints and boundaries based on your family's values and whatnot. But like, yeah, it is a balance. It's hard to stay in that zone because, yeah, we may be exhausted, we may be stressed out, or we may be at our limit. And we just want them to just do what we say and just for a
Yeah,
second. But
I've
it's hard.
been
It's hard
there.
to kind of balance that.
Oh yeah, no, I've been there before, and as many people, like if you've been listening to this podcast for any amount of time, you know that a big thing that I push is that like I live in the middle on most things. I honestly think that in pretty much all aspects of life, you've got two extremes, and the right answer is somewhere within the middle. And the right answer is different for every person too. There is no like quote unquote right answer, but you're gonna have to balance between these two things. And I kind of liked, it's a little off the creativity, but you know, one of the books that I really like and I've recommended multiple times is Hold On to Your Kids by Gabor Mate. And they did a long-term study on like the happiness of children, and they did 4 quadrants. They did authoritative and non-authoritative, and then they did loving and non-loving. And basically those are the 4 quadrants. So you can either be like high authority, low love, high authority, high love, all that stuff. And where they found was like the happiest kids actually came out of the one with like high authority or high structure and high love, basically. And the structure doesn't mean that you like confine your kids, but you have like instead of having like a really tiny little box for your kids to like be creative within, you give them a big box, but you still show them those boundaries essentially. Exactly. And it's like you get to do whatever you want within here. So like, you want to color? Like the confines are you're going to color right now. Yep. I don't give a shit what medium you use or if you use crayons or whatever or what you draw. It's just that the confines, the boundaries are time to do art or color or something.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. That's a perfect example. And it sounds like I need to pick up that book, but yeah, that's exactly right. Like it's not one or the other, it's both at high levels. And this is true for adults too. Like there's the Center of Creative Leadership, their leader development model is all about high challenge and high support. Like one without the other doesn't activate the highest levels of growth or creativity or leadership effectiveness. And that's how we want to approach our kids too, like giving that structure, providing those constraints, but giving them the freedom and autonomy to also make decisions and choices and explore and make mistakes. And yeah, and like the structure could be exactly what you said, or a set of ethics, a set of values, or expectations around like, hey, we don't give up if things get hard. We persist, go out and do whatever you want, but like we're going to try our best no matter what, right? And I expect that of you. So yeah, I loved what you said about that. That's exactly the kind of environment you want to be thinking of as a parent: high structure, high love, in that way.
Yep, definitely. And I don't want to sit here, and I'm not shaming anyone who puts their kid in front of a TV or a screen once in a while, because every parent needs that. Now, I will say, I have a theory. There's absolutely no scientific backing behind it except for my superior brain and intellect, obviously. But it's when you're letting your kids watch something, I feel like they should be sitting at a TV and watching it as like an event as opposed to like a tablet where they can like move around with it, because at least they're sitting focused on one event, and like the TV time or the movie is the event and you can focus on it, as opposed to like if you've got a tablet, it's like you've got a walking distraction with you everywhere you go.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then yeah, like yeah, my son, he watches shows and things like that. But like, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with it. I think there are some shows and things that are better than others, but like media and movies and shows, documentaries, like these can be those pathways you use. Like if we can't travel to Africa and go on a safari, we can watch a show about that, right? Like there's some really great shows like the Wild Kratts and Blaze and the Monster Machines that expose your kids to all these crazy concepts, you know, that as I know, like as parents, like my wife and I, we don't know about these topics, but then my son's coming telling us about aerodynamics and like the golden tamarin and how it does this interesting thing. Like there's some shows that really can fuel your kids' creativity. And then there's also some shows that are just complete brain rot, just blah. And there is a difference, like you're saying too, of like intentionally watching and consuming versus just kind of using it as like a numbing kind of noise activity.
Yeah, no, definitely. And sorry, I had to mute that because there's gardeners outside, and so I'm trying to make sure
Oh
you're not
yeah.
getting any of that noise in here. But yeah, no, I agree. There's definitely some really crappy shows and inputs that can be going in. We're definitely a big Bluey household here. We
Oh,
we
Bluey's the
love
best.
Bluey.
Yeah.
I
Bluey's
like
amazing.
Bluey.
Bluey's awesome.
And
Yeah.
actually
Like such a good show.
the music is great too. I listen to the album on like in our car rides. Like that's probably the only like regular kids music that we listen to is the
Yeah.
Bluey albums. And like when we put on dance mode, my like youngest son starts just like going nuts in the car seat, just jamming. So
Yeah. Bluey is amazing. A lot of good lessons and things that kids pick up on from Bluey, and parents love it too. Like, yeah, definitely Bluey all day, every day.
yep, for sure. Well, kind of transitioning, it sounds like there's a lot of ways that we can foster this creative mindset within our kids. And one of the things that I really like about creativity, or that I'm finding value in, and a lot of times you'll get people, as parents, everyone's kind of different thinkings in terms of creativity. You're going to have the really like mathematically inclined, scientifically inclined people who are going to listen to the start of this episode and be like, it's not my kid. They're going to win the math bee or be an engineer. But I think that there's soft skills or just regular human skills that come into play with creativity. And I'm finding that more as I grow and I get older. And so I don't want to have my kids have to wait to figure that out like I did. I'd rather them figure it out now. And so one of the things that I think that's most important within creativity is just finding courage within creativity and having a growth mindset. So, is that something that you think you might be able to expand a little bit upon or talk a little bit about?
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree. Like creativity, that's one of the main benefits if you're really trying to nurture that in your children, whether they go off in the creative profession or not. Courage is a skill and orientation that will always benefit your kid, I believe. So, like, yeah, the act of doing something creative always requires courage because you're going up against the norm, the status quo. You're doing something different, off the beaten path, something no one's really asking you to do, but you want to do. And it helps you build self confidence the more you do it, I believe. And so it is about a growth mindset, where opposite of a growth mindset is this fixed mindset of my intelligence is fixed. I'm never going to get smarter. I am who I am, no matter what. Like, I need to make sure I don't fail. I don't want to look bad, et cetera, et cetera. Growth mindset, on the other hand, is hey, I can always get better. I can always learn something. I can always figure a problem out, right? Even if I've never faced it before, I believe that I can handle it and overcome that challenge. I'll find a way to figure it out through usually my creativity. And so that orientation is so important for success objectively, like career wise in any domain. It's important for success at school, but like more importantly, it's just like the fulfillment that comes from that, from knowing that I can go through life, I can handle anything, I can figure it out, I can learn something from whatever life faces or gives to me. That's so powerful. That's so great to see. And there's just a lot of research to how resilience and growth mindset is linked to higher levels of well-being and happiness, meaningfulness in life, better relationships. It's that superpower, right? That's at the core of creativity, this growth mindset, this courage. Um, and it's very transferable across domains and activities, right? So,
Yep.
and yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
I mean,
that's
definitely. I think that that's definitely like one of the biggest things that I've learned, like personally, is just I talked about it in last week's episode. I sat down at the computer trying to do an episode and just kept on turning it off and saying, fuck, I can't do this. Like I'd get like 5-10 minutes in and it didn't sound authentic or it wasn't what I was thinking. Like I have, if you knew me outside of, just outside of the podcast or anything, you would not call me a perfectionist. I'm like the opposite of a perfectionist. I'm kind of go with my gut on a lot of things, but that doesn't mean that I don't have perfectionistic tendencies. And one of the things I was talking about is that this is, in a lot of areas, I like to have control over things. I make fun of myself. I joke around a lot, but that's because in an environment, like if I'm talking to friends, family, whatever, I can control me getting made fun of. I'll be self-deprecating so that way I'm in control of how people perceive me in that moment. And through the podcast and through social media and all the other stuff that goes along with this, it's vulnerable to me, and I do not like being vulnerable. And so it does take courage, and this might not resonate with a lot of people like who have grown up in the social media age, and they're really used to just like walking down the street and like looking into a camera and fucking talking to themselves. To me, that's like not normal. I have actually never walked down the street and talked to myself on the street for like a video because I'm worried about what people are going to think about me. It's just not normal to me. So I think there's a lot of courage that comes within creativity. And I think that like having that environment at home is a good thing, which kind of leads me into like the next topic and kind of wrapping up the conversation here is being a dad, being a mom or a parent, or just even if you're not a parent, if you're just like a regular human being who doesn't have to keep children alive, maybe you've got some dogs or cats that you need to keep alive, but anyone fostering that creativity within yourself. So like, what are some ways that you think people can work on being creative and modeling that creativity for children, for others?
Yeah. So I think this might be one of the most important things you can do. Children learn through imitation, right? Like your kids, they want to be like you. As soon as they can start walking, or even before that, they admire you, they look up to you, they are just like little mini versions of you in a lot of ways, right? Like they're your little mini me's, and they think you're the coolest person in the world. And so, like, taking that into consideration, like if that's important to kind of role model creativity, right? And this doesn't mean necessarily being artistic or whatever, like we said earlier, but it just means having courage to try new things, approaching things with a growth mindset, doing hard things, taking on challenges, learning new skills, and committing to that process. Like when your kids see you do these things, they realize, oh wow, like just I saw my dad, he was frustrated the other day, but he didn't give up. He didn't just say, oh, this is hard, I'm not going to do this ever again. He said, wow, I just have to learn how to do this. I need to get this new thing. I got to troubleshoot. Boom, I fixed it. Now I can move forward with the next step of this project that I'm trying to do. Right. And that teaches your kids like that resilience, that perseverance, which is so important. I think it's more important more now than ever because the social media age, there's so many quick dopamine hits. And a lot of times, and it's probably mostly unconsciously happening, anytime there's stress or difficulty, a lot of kids and even adults, they turn to the phone or YouTube or something, like a quick hit, like, oh, this is hard, I don't like it, it's making me feel challenged and resistance, and let me just get satisfied and get that quick dopamine fix on this little TikTok. And now I feel good and happy, and why would I even want to do anything hard? Like I can just look at this all day and feel activated and whatever. So it's more important than ever to kind of show your kids, hey, I have this idea. It's important to me. I want to do it. I'm going to do it. Here I am going through the process of it. Wow, there's some things I didn't expect. There's these obstacles I have to overcome. I'm going to overcome those obstacles. I'm going to learn from my mistakes. I'm going to have that growth mindset. And then boom, like I did it. Like hell yeah, like I built this, I built this thing, or I made this song, or I wrote this book, I started this podcast. I've done 20 episodes or 100 episodes, or like that's really cool for your kids to see. Like whether they know it or not, whether you know it or not, they're paying attention really closely. And whenever one day they have that idea that they want to pursue, they're going to say, "Oh, my dad did something like this, and here's what I remember, and he did it anyways." Or my mom did something like this. Like I can do something like this too. Like they've done it, I can do it. So I think that's really, really important. It's just a strong value, showing up as a role model, taking on your own projects, and not just for your kids though. It's like if you do this yourself, like you're growing, you're learning more about yourself and your strengths, and you're getting better at things, and you're bringing to life things that haven't existed before. That's really fulfilling for you as a parent. And when you're fulfilled and you're becoming your better version of yourself through these challenging creative projects or endeavors, like you can then show up as a better parent, show up as a better partner in your own family as well, right? Like sometimes as being a dad or a parent, you lose part of your identity. You have to let go of certain things. In some ways, it feels like the old you might be dying, or killed off, and that could be partly true. But there's also a lot of opportunity to keep things alive or bring new parts of you to life, if that makes sense, and kind of take care of ourselves. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's my take on that.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. I think it's definitely as I get older and having kids now, it's a lot of it is about becoming the best version of yourself that you can be. And a lot of times when, people ask me what's the most important thing when you're becoming a dad, how do you be the best dad that you possibly can be? It's very counterintuitive, but you need to learn actually more about yourself to become a better dad, not because you want to do something like in this narcissistic way, not like, oh, I'm awesome, I need to learn more about me. But if you don't know yourself and what makes you tick, you're not going to be able to interact with other people to the best of your ability. And I think that one of those aspects is creativity, having a creative outlet. A lot of people don't have that nowadays. And that's like a portion of them that is gone. Because when you're a kid, when you're younger, you're always dancing or singing or doing something weird all the time. And as you get older, you lose quite a bit of that. And that doesn't necessarily mean that that need goes away. It's just that you've suppressed it completely. And if when you get older, you need to find a way to kind of express that again, not just for everyone's benefit, for your benefit, for your kids' benefit, your spouse's benefit. If you're a better person, it's going to be good for everyone around you. And that's one of the things that I feel like finding a creative outlet has helped me with, is just learning more about myself, having an outlet so that way my wife doesn't have to listen to me, rant and rave constantly. I could just do it to my computer and have, other people listen to my bullshit. But, yeah, I do think that it's important to have that outlet yourself. And, I'm not sure if you have any ideas for people. This doesn't have to be anything big, but if there's any ideas you had on how someone who maybe struggles with it, how they can find their own creative outlet.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, like how to develop and spark creativity in kids, we can follow similar advice, right? Like if you have no idea like what your passions or purpose might be, then you got to expose yourself to a wide variety, diversity of things, and pay attention. I like this. Oh, that's cool. Oh, I want to learn more about this. Oh, I'm actually pretty good at this. Oh, these things really, I'm not interested in all. And you want to keep leaning into your curiosities and what you find energizes you. Some people have this idea like, oh man, I've always wanted to do this. So you may have more of a crystallized idea or mission or purpose or just spark. And then you can lean into that. For those people, you want to, a lot of times, like we can get overwhelmed. Like, how can I do this? Like, I'll never be an award-winning podcaster or author or whatever. So with those people that have that idea, that itch, encourage you to break things down and start small and not put so much pressure on yourself, but build up to that grand vision, right? Do a pilot test, start with a prototype, do an experiment, just approach things with very little pressure and just like with that growth mindset. I'm learning, I'm going to try something out. The first time I do it, it might be pretty shitty. Second time I do it, it's going to be less shitty. Third time, it may actually be a little bit good. Fourth time, I'm getting better. I'm building confidence. But just lean into it and just get going. Like start small, keep the momentum going. Try to stay as consistent as you can, whether that's once a week or once a day or a couple times a month. Like don't give up. It is going to be hard. It is going to be frustrating. Your taste and your vision is going to be way up here, and your actual skills and the time available you have to put towards whatever you're doing is going to be way down here. There's going to be that gap. So it's like you always know there's more you could be doing or it's not up to your standards yet, but that's part of the process. So you got to accept that. You got to keep moving forward. Um, and then, yeah, like something that came up in a chat with somebody last week, like some of us, we start with this big purpose, like this why, right? The Simon Sinek, like start with why, like this huge, meaningful life purposing. Some people have that. Some people don't. You don't need that. Like you can also start off with asking yourself, like, why not? Like, why the fuck not? Like, I could start a podcast. I could write a book. I could start a blog. I could make some music. It doesn't have to be this grand endeavor. It doesn't have to be rational. And like, you just got to trust yourself and what you want to do and lean into that and keep exploring it, keep building on it. And it can be something ridiculous, right? Like I was talking to this woman the other day. It's like she had this idea of making um like clothes for like the certain style of like stuffed animal bunny. And it's not a, nobody's asking for that. Like nobody would like in a career plan, like no one would say, hey, yeah, this makes sense. Like, but she wants to do it. It's fulfilling, it's fun, she's leaning into it, she's taking action, she's making progress. If you get to that point of momentum, like I think that's, I use that word a lot, momentum. If you can get to feeling some sense of momentum, you build your confidence, you see real results, and you can leverage that to do bigger and bolder things. So yeah, just start wherever you're at and start small. Time's limited, resources are limited, but I think you do owe it to yourself to explore, experiment, to try things out and to go for it.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think that's good advice for anyone. And, anyone who doesn't think that they can. I just did some simple math this morning because, like I said, the podcast was just something I started on a whim. I usually do it. This is like the latest that I've ever done a podcast before because I'm usually doing it like 5 a.m. in the morning because it's the only time I can get 2 seconds to myself. But I went through and I've 43 episodes, I think. And, I think average run time's like 20 minutes. It's like 14 hours in 1 year, 14 hours of podcast time, which means that there's like a lot that goes on behind that. All the times that I fucked up and had to like restart, or all of the editing that goes into it. And actually one of the things that I'm more proud about, like mostly proud about this, is just the trying to figure shit out part. Obviously we were supposed to do this last week and I couldn't figure out the technical aspects of it. I was having a complete meltdown. I was in my garage. It was 105 degrees outside, sweating my ass off, trying to figure this stuff out like 30 minutes before our call. I couldn't do it. We had to reschedule, which thank you for doing that and being generous with me on that. But it was just, there's a lot of things that go into, you think just sitting down and talking to the computer. There's so much more that goes into it. And it's forcing yourself to learn like on the spot, right? You're kind of under the gun. You got to make sure that you're getting stuff done. And so since starting the podcast, I've learned how to like edit videos on different software. I've learned how to incorporate microphones, videos, doing Instagram videos and shit like that, editing for that. And then now being able to do virtual interviews, recording them, and then also syncing them up through, these different softwares. There's a lot of like hard skills that come in on top of what I thought would be just, I'm going to start a podcast. I like to talk, and maybe other people like to hear me talk. And that was like the easy aspect of it, but it pushes you to doing other things. And yeah, sometimes I really don't want to do it, but I still try to get stuff out there. And it's not necessarily for, all of the adoring fans out there or whatever. It's more so just for me. I struggle with following through on things sometimes, or like I get really excited about something and jump into it, and then like it tapers off. And I don't necessarily want this to be one of those things. And it's almost like I can grow from this outlet. So I think that all kind of like falls in line with what you're talking about. And to any of the listeners out there that don't think that you can do it, I'm here to tell you, shut up, you can.
Yeah. Love it. Yeah. I love that. I love that example and those anecdotes there. Like, yeah, like that's a powerful skill. Just that commitment, the follow through, I'll figure it out mindset. Cause yeah, I know one thing that a lot of times we can get too perfectionist and think we're not ready yet. And, that time is wasted. And like, just get going, just start small, figure it out along the way.
Yeah.
And see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, you're never ready, in all honesty. I went back and listened to the first episode, and I'm like, man, this sucked. So it's, it is funny, but I appreciate you coming on the podcast. I'm sure that there's a bunch of other things that we can go. Creativity is just a huge topic to dive into, and there's so many different like little outlets you can go into. So in the future, maybe we'll pop on again and go down a different outlet, different avenue when it comes to creativity. But I appreciate your time today. And before we wrap up, I just wanted to see if there was anything that you wanted to promote, Instagram or classes or anywhere that people can find you.
Yeah, sure. So a few things. So one, if you want to get more details and ideas around these creative parenting strategies, there's a free Medium article that I'll share with you. You can go there, check it out for a deeper dive into some practical tips and next actions to take to help nurture your kids' creativity. We'll link to that. Two, if you are a parent and you're looking to explore your creative outlet or what you want to pursue, and if you need some support, either figuring out what that vision is, like what you want to do and what you want to pursue, or if you need support thinking through, like, how do I actually pull this off? Like, what habits or systems, and how do I stay consistent with it and set goals and all that stuff? There's a free guide I'll link to you. It's called Bigger, Better, Bolder, Designing Your Best Year Yet. It'll walk you through your vision, help you amplify your motivation, help you build those habits and systems to stay productive and consistent, and also help you think through a few things around mindset that may be helping or maybe holding you back. And then lastly, just would love for you to check out my original kids music on Spotify, Apple Music. I'll share some links to the stuff I do as Mr. Brew Daddy. It's a lot of fun and may give you an alternative to some of the traditional kids music out there that you may or may not be enjoying. And I would appreciate your support on that. I think it'd be a lot of fun for your kids, especially if you have high energy, active kids that are into hip hop or rock driving beats and just fun experiences. So yeah, check those things out. I'm also on Instagram as Jeff Fajans and Mr. Brew Daddy. And just hit me up if you have any questions about anything I'm talking about. Would love to connect with you, help you out if I can, or share some advice or feedback, or just hear what was resonating with you from this episode. So that's it. Those are the things I'll share.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that. And I'll go ahead and link all that stuff in the episode description, and then it'll be on social media and all that good stuff. So I'll make sure I get all those out there. But yeah, other than that, I really do appreciate you hopping on with me, Jeff. And I think this is a important topic, and one that's important not just for parents, but for just anyone in general who's trying to grow as a person. And so I appreciate your insight, and looking forward to this episode coming out and get some feedback on it. But again, thanks for your time. And yeah, that's going to do it.
Yeah, thanks, Robbie. It was awesome chatting with you. I appreciate you having me on.
That's it for this week's episode. I appreciate y'all being here with me. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasting needs met. If you feel the show deserves it, leave a 5-star review. It really helps. For more content, follow me on social media. In the episode description, you'll find a send me a message button. Use it to suggest topics or share your thoughts about the episode. Just a heads up, I can't see who sent the message or respond to it in any way. So if you would like a response or you want to be a guest on the show, send me an email at unhinged.father@gmail.com. Thank you for your support. Have a fantastic day. And as always, be good, try hard, do your best.